Welcome to Legal Keys, unlocking time, revenue, and results. The podcast that connects you with the people, technologies, and trending topics shaping the modern legal landscape. From cutting-edge AI innovations to high-growth marketing strategies and everything in between. Legal Keys is your go-to resource for actionable insights. Brought to you by Faster Outcomes and hosted by Tim Sawyer, two-time Inc. 500 co-founder entrepreneur. We're here to help you navigate the tools and trends driving success in today's legal world.
Hello, and welcome to Legal Keys Podcast, brought to you by Faster Outcomes, the ultimate AI-powered legal intelligence platform for lawyers in law firms of all shapes and sizes. Today, our second episode, and I'm so excited because I've got a good friend here with us today that I've been getting to know for the last 6 months. Somewhat famous. I saw some pictures. I won't disclose everything. Let's just say the plane he flew into his recent event, probably better than the one you and I flew in. But I'll let him tell you that story. So our guest today is Tripp Segars, who is fresh off his trip, no pun intended, from Miami, right? Where you went to the recent Association for Justice in Miami, about just under 2,000 lawyers there. So let's start there. You just got back last night, 1:30. Tell us a little bit about the trip. What'd you learn? What was your participation like?
Yeah, it was a quick trip. I mean, I flew out on Friday, was there Friday night and Saturday night, came back last night. I've got a 2-year-old. And my wife's been out of town, so I had to get back for her. But really maximized the time I was down there. I was there for the Council of Presidents events that were going on, as well as some additional events where I was speaking on some legislative issues that we're working on in Mississippi that other people are focusing on around the country as well. So it was really good.
Is it okay to share? Is it okay to share what those issues are? Like, what are the?
Talk a little bit about it. Yeah, I mean, so there are always companies. And this isn't unique to Mississippi. There are always companies that, want immunity or things or people, that want immunity. And that was no different this year. We saw it with pesticide manufacturers. You're kind of seeing that around the country right now and around 20 states, and pretty hard fight. And these in particular are looking for immunity in relation to product liability and pesticide related claims for things like Roundup, things like that. And so we've been fighting that a little bit, and our legislative session is still going on. As of now, those have not been able to move forward, but you never know, right? And so it's we never say it's done until sine die happens, which for us will be.
You're fighting the good fight. And one of the things I didn't realize, and I've enjoyed that as we've gotten to know each other, is how much time, there's a reason I waited on your bio, how much time goes into, in your role, actually fighting the good fight, right? I think sometimes it kind of goes unseen. I give you a lot of credit for that. And let me just introduce quick bio, guys, and the work that he's doing. Tripp is the president of the Mississippi Association for Justice, a seasoned advocate with 15 years of experience in personal injury and civil litigation. Mississippi Association for Justice and Advancing Technology in the Legal Practice. Tripp champions innovation, certainly spends a lot of time in legislative session. I don't know how you do it. And I kind of tongue in cheek said to Tripp the other day, when do you get time to lawyer? Because you're spending so much time in legislation, but you're a dedicated leader. Like I said, you're fighting the good fight. You're a mentor, passionate about enhancing access to justice and supporting the growth of Mississippi's legal community. And you're walking that out, right, every day. And so, like I said, I give you tons of credit for the work that you do. How often do you go into legislative session? Is it like a season?
Once a year, and for us, it's usually from January to around April. And, most every day at the Capitol, we have a team there, whether it's me or legislative chair, our lobbyists that we have, or our members that go down and support various issues that we're doing.
Wow. Good. Kudos to you. And so, as you know, Legal Keys, we want to talk about the trends in the legal community. We want to talk about the hot topics, things that are exciting to our listeners. One of the things that we enjoy talking about on Legal Keys is AI. And that's the use of artificial intelligence. It means a lot of different things to different people. And I know you've got some experience with AI, and I'm curious for our listeners, in layman's terms, what are the practical uses that you're engaging with AI in your own practice?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in our practice, we use it from anything related to marketing, drafting emails, drafting letters, drafting social media posts, drafting various things we put on the website. That's on that part of it. And I guess on the litigation side, we use it to help draft complaints, interrogatories, requests for production, requests for admission, motions, responses, replies, all that kind of stuff, as well as to help create documents sometimes that we can use in various hearings. And so I think it's really important to know that you can really use AI for just about anything. And people have already been using AI, I think, for years. They just don't really think of it that way. We've talked before about using like WordPerfect back in the day or Word today. Even when you're stuff like Grammarly and spell check and all that, to a certain extent, is AI.
Of course, powered by AI. Yep.
It's just not what people are terming it today as AI, right? Because there's a lot more flash into what's going on today, and a lot more opportunity to do some of the other stuff we're doing, like medical chronologies and demands, things like that. And I think it's really important. I think it saves a lot of time. Yeah. And individuals really from solo all the way to bigger firms are finding really good ways to make their practice more efficient with it.
Now, so it's working for you, and clearly you're using it in we look at beginner, intermediate, advanced. I feel like you're trending from intermediate to advanced, and there's a level of comfort that you have that not every lawyer has, right?
That's probably true. And I'll tell you this, I actually started using it on stuff that was not legal, because when my daughter was first born, I would use it to create bedtime stories for her and just create random sets of, scenarios and just let it create stories based off of that. And pretty amusing stuff. I mean, you really can use it for just about anything.
Anything. And in your own usage, now you're part of a firm, there's many lawyers in the firm. Can you kind of go one-to-one? Yeah, everybody in the firm thinks the same way, or what's the spectrum of thinking around, even in your immediate universe, around AI?
I would say that everybody realizes that if you're not using it, you're going to get left behind. I would say that individual users may use it more than others around the firm for various things they're working on. I probably use it more than most just because I'm very comfortable with it at this point, and find that it's really effective when you use it properly. And I would reiterate that if people aren't using it, they're going to get left behind.
Yeah. And again, thinking along the terms of advanced, intermediate, or beginner, intermediate, and advanced, when you first started thinking about using AI practically, what was so for the folks who listen to the podcast, understand the lawyer who's watching this and going, I've never touched AI. I don't, I want to do it. People keep talking about it. And I'm not sure what would be a good first step. What would be like a recommendation you would make to an early adopter to say, well, just try this, see how that goes?
I would probably just start, I guess, really going on the internet, doing search, and just seeing what products are out there. You got to first understand exactly what your needs are. What do you think? What do you think that AI could help you with in your practice? What do you need help with? What are some of the weaker areas where maybe you need to save time? You don't necessarily have folks who are specialized in an area that can help you, and maybe having AI is available as a tool to do something like that for you. But I would just start Googling, different AI functions, and just start playing around with the different platforms that are out there.
Yeah, and you had mentioned something that made sense to me, where you said, even just email. So existing workflows, right? So if you're new to AI and you're trying to get comfortable with it, take an email, right? Just cut and paste, put it into an open source, and see how the flow looks, right? And speak your tone, because you can adjust tone with different platforms with AI. And as you say, there's many workflows that we already have that have AI components to them, right? And email seems like a simple win. Again, for folks listening, try that and get comfortable with that. I will say, as you go up the spectrum or go across the spectrum into more advanced applications, it's funny because you'll hear that lawyer who'll say, I don't know, to respond to a demand letter with AI, I don't know if that's responsible. And we're sitting in a hotel, listening to a speech, and outside there's self-driving cars, all using AI, not hitting anybody. No one's crashing.
Yeah, I don't know where you were, but like when you think about Waymo and some of those other ones, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could get into, if you want to talk politics, some of this other stuff, about different people who are being put into different agencies who control, way some of this AI is done, and driverless vehicles. And man, if you get in a crash here in the future, is it going to be like a car crash case, or is it going to be a product liability case when there's nobody in the car? I mean, there's lots of advances that are going on right now, both in the legal field and AI, and a lot of that's having to be meshed together in some way. And there's not always a clear answer, at least as of right now.
Yeah, that's a great take. What would that look like? And when I was in Phoenix, Waymo had tons of cars there. And I was speaking to one of the guys from the American Bar Association, quasi-lobbyist. I won't classify him as a lobbyist, but he was talking about how there are committees in Congress now that are trying to engage with folks who are, well-versed in AI, particularly as it relates to legal, and looking for advice. And I just started talking about basic, simple terms that would be simple to someone who understood AI. And he looked at me and he said, Tim, if you went before a committee in Congress right now and used any of the language you just described, he's like, they're not going to know what you're talking about. And that's the trick right now, right? Which brings up my next question, because as a president of an association, your members look to you for guidance and instruction. And, I've been spending some time with different associations, and there certainly does not appear to be a universal set of, hey, here are the rules of the road as it relates to the responsible and ethical use of the products that are in the marketplace. What's your take on that, and how is Mississippi dealing with that?
No, I think you're right. And we don't necessarily have a formal ethics opinion on it. There are some states who do. And I think from a general standpoint, you got to make sure you're not the example, like what may have happened in New York when you're doing various things with motions and responses, and you're citing cases where there may be some hallucinations in there. And for those that don't know, hallucinations are things that are not necessarily accurate, that are put in by the AI platform or the agentic aspect of it when you're rolling out some type of work product. And
well said, by the way.
Well, yeah,
we could get you doing commercials for us.
But yeah, I mean, I think you definitely got to fact check everything you're doing, and that goes back into the ethical application of it. It's ultimately on you when you are signing a pleading or doing some type of work product to ensure that what you're doing is factually accurate. And if you can't do that, then you got to figure out another way to do it, because I don't think that AI right now is 100% perfect by any means. Mm-hmm. I don't think any platform is, and which is why a lot of these companies are using people, even on the back end, to somewhat fact check before they send, demands out or medical chronologies out or things like that that they're working on. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that AI will continue to advance with these platforms, and as it does, it will get even better. Yeah,
and what you're referring to is human in the middle, and sure. I think that's one of the aspects that we really do need to be aware of, is that. But even if you look at a human, right? If you've got a paralegal or a legal assistant, the likelihood that that person is 100% right 100% of the time. That's why it's up to the lawyer. Ultimately, like you said, it's your work product. It's up to that one last pass to make sure, hey, is this good, right? And so what we see is between the platform itself and what we can do with what we call, again, human in the middle, you can get to about 90%, right? So if you can get to 90% of something that used to take you 100%, now you've only got 10% left, you're in a pretty good spot. And
that's about the number that I would have used. I would have used somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 to 95%, depending on what you're asking the platform to do.
Yeah, and that's what we see the most. And what's really cool is all the new use cases that we discover over and over and over again, how people are finding creative ways to integrate AI, but then also going back to, and I don't want to just walk away from this ethical issue around guidance. So I was speaking with an attorney, and it was interesting because in the law, there's this idea that you have to stay up to date, on top of, aware of technological advances that can add value to your client, right? And,
that's right.
And that's an interesting concept, because I don't know of, other than a doctor, not sure if too much, maybe a little bit of obviously accounting, where you've got to stay up to date on the most recent technology, right? You have to. And then, but how do you square that with some of the cautionary tales that are coming out? And why? So when you guys go, this is a good question. So you're all these bar association presidents are together, right? You just came from Miami. You're sitting in the room. There's 50 of these people, all bar association presidents. Phoenix, there was another group. And what are those conversations like right now? So as we think about takeaways from this conversation, the lawyer who's on the outside trying to get what's being distilled, what are the conversations that you're having with your colleagues around the use of AI?
Okay, so specific to AI you're talking about?
Yeah.
I think that in general, everyone is open to using it. Everyone understands that you need to use it, because in our case, on the plaintiff side, the defendants are representing clients who are saying, you need to be using this to further what you're doing for me. And also because they're trying to help cut costs, right? Because they don't want a lawyer billing $500 or $1,000 an hour to continue doing stuff if a program can do that just as good, and if not get you 95% of the way there. So I think they're definitely using it on the other side. And I think that more plaintiffs, firms and lawyers are getting very creative in the way they do it. Ethically, everybody understands. You gotta understand what you're doing and fact check everything that you're doing, so that you can make sure that you're being the best advocate you can for your client. And going back to some of the uses, a lot of them are, and we had these conversations even over a lunch or dinner table over the couple of days I was there, doing like deposition summaries, doing live transcripts with AI platforms, using medical different medical periodicals and things that are available at your fingertips in the middle of depositions to fact check deponents. People are using it for big demonstrative animations and things like that, which I think is really cool. So people are using it a bunch of different ways, aside from just the pleadings and the demands of the medical chronologies. I think as you continue to see advancement on this, you're going to see additional creative ways that people are doing it, both in the pre-litigation part and then also at trial. Yeah,
and that use case, it comes up a lot. We were talking with there's certain deposition products that we have available, and the ability to chat with the deposition while it's going on, right? Because I've never been on the right side of a deposition. I've been on the wrong side of a couple of them, and certainly would have appreciated having some tools of my own. And story for another day, but all business stuff. And
hopefully it went all right for you.
And all business stuff. And
Got it.
So, but imagine if someone's blatantly, and that doctor, physician, whatever is, he's getting a little bit away from his original talk track, and you can go, and that would be a very helpful tool once you get them on their heels, and that's exists now, right? The ability to chat with a document or chat with a recording literally in real time it's a game changer.
Yeah, it can be very effective. No matter what you're doing, specifically in a deposition, sure.
Yeah, I'm really hoping in the next 6 to 12 months for the regulatory environment to catch up. And that's with all technology, right? The technology runs, And then, people start using it. But in the
What do you mean
law,
on the regulatory side? What are you referencing?
meaning guidance, right? So like rules of engagement, meaning I can't go find one document that says, okay, this is how a lawyer can, should, and will use AI in their law firm, right?
Sure.
That document, there's best practices, there's ethical suggestions.
You would like some clear guidelines on how to use
some
it.
clear guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what prevents folks from doing that, right? And I think part of it, you would know better than me, right? And that's probably the legal industry still trying to get their arms around what the heck's going on. But like any type of science, even in the medical community, by the time you figure out what someone was working on 3 years ago, the technology has advanced even further than that. So I can only imagine what this is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now. It'll be different.
Very much so. It's going to change the way people practice law day in and day out. And it already has, and it'll continue to do that. You're talking about 1 or 2 years down the road, man, think about 10, 15 years, 20 years, what's it going to look like? I mean, that's the kind of stuff I try and think about day in and day out is, I've been practicing 15 years. What is it going to look like 30 years, 35, 40 years for me? I mean, am I going to be doing things the same way? Probably not. I mean, there may be completely different levels of practicing law from what I'm doing now. And, it may have a brain chip going on and may tell me, okay, you need to go in and do this and this and this, and just automatically pops up on a screen as opposed to me having to actually type something. You never know.
Whatever it is, we don't know, because it's typically we look at this technology and even our own stuff, it almost doubles in capacity every 90 to 120 days, what it can do. Okay. That's the pace that we're at right now. So things that we did in the second quarter of 2024 are like, that's what kids, anybody can do that. And so it's going really fast. And then I want to take a few minutes before we wind down though, because one of the things that we talk a lot about, and I notice it's important to you, is being passionate about enhancing access to justice, right? So there's many underserved communities, and because we're talking about AI, what do you think AI could do, as you understand it? Because you're in that intermediate stage. What do you think the applications are, and how can we as companies building this technology help with access to justice? Because it's important to us too.
Sure. I mean, we use it, we mentioned legislative stuff. We even use it to read legislation and search for key things that we can do to help either further or take away legislation that is not good for the mass amount of people in Mississippi. AI is helping with that. I think that if you can get the right platforms in the hands of these access to justice type entities, like Mississippi Access to Justice and things like that, they can use those products to help more people in a faster amount of time, as opposed to lawyers taking weeks or months to get or years to get some of these cases moving along and pushing that product out and trying to help the client. Ultimately, you'll be able to do it much faster. And so I would love for the nonprofits to really get a whole lot of access to this and be able to understand and use it to be able to further the help they're doing for pro bono clients and things like that.
Well, you bring up a great point. And the founder of Faster Outcomes, the sponsor of this podcast, had some experience in the legal system, and it went on for years. And things that should have taken a minute took a month, things took a month, took a year. And so a big part of his passion around the work that we do is client-centered, that human-centered approach, right? How can we make, and so he's created a pledge called the 111, 1% of equity, 1% of profits, and 1% of every employee's time goes to underserved communities, real dollars that are going to go to that. And so I know where his heart is. And if you ever said, hey, Tim, these folks could really use these products and be better served, I think there's so much you can do around that. Connect us, we'll talk with them, and Rishi is his name. He would be psyched to do that. And so
that's a great idea.
Yeah, your idea. I think that is a great idea. And we'd love to, hey, anything that we can do that, because the stuff that you do that tends to be good for humanity usually ends up being good for the bottom line, right? And if everybody wins, then all the better. And so with a couple of minutes we have left, what's coming up for you over the next 6 months? What are the projects you're working on? And when's your next Association for Justice meeting coming up in Mississippi? And how can people find you there?
Yeah, so I mean, our annual convention is June the 12th through the 14th down in New Orleans. And so we'll have hundreds of lawyers down there from Mississippi working on topics that are really important to us. Aside from that, obviously, we've got the legislative session that runs until April. We're doing a statewide membership tour where we're trying to show lawyers around the state who are not involved in MAJ the benefits of being in the organization. I think we also have a federal court CLE coming up. We are working on an AI seminar and looking forward to that. So there's a lot going on and a lot of things that we are doing for our members to help better the practice and help better them individually. So really excited about a lot of that. And then far as role on the Council of Presidents for AAJ, we're constantly working on things all around the country to help better the lives of the people we serve.
Amen. And you're doing a good job. What's the Mississippi Association for Justice website?
MSAJ.org.
MSAJ.org. Highly, if you're in Mississippi, I highly recommend. I know Tripp's hard. I see the work that he does, guys, the hours that he puts in and getting home late at night to take care of his daughter. And it's good work. So if you're not part of the association, we encourage you to give them a look. Absolutely, for sure. Support any way that you possibly can. And we hope to do the same ourselves. Tripp, as always.
I can tell you that there is no one who will be happier more about my year of president being done than my wife. She has been doing most of the work with Charlotte while I've been able to work, and both here at the office at the Dias Law Firm, and then also with MAJ and AAJ. And so she's going to be really excited when that year is over, and of course I'll be excited to spend more time with her and Charlotte. But I think it's really important, to give a lot when you're given, much, like in this case. And so really happy with what I do, really enjoy it, and look forward to continuing to do it for years to come.
That's great. And I bet the first award you got when you were elected or nominated or sworn in as president was something from your wife that said, "Congratulations, immediate past president."
She may be giving me something like that in June. There's no doubt about it. Or maybe she'll be giving me a broom or a vacuum or all sorts of stuff to put in the washer. Who knows?
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, we want to thank our listeners first of all, thank you, Tripp, for taking the time. We know you're super busy. You just got home late last night.
Sure.
We want to thank our listeners for joining Legal Keys. We appreciate liking, sharing the podcast. We'll have exciting episodes coming up for you in the next 2 weeks. We want to thank our sponsor, Faster Outcomes, the ultimate AI-powered legal intelligence platform for law firms of all shapes and sizes. You can check them out at fasteroutcomes.com. Again, thank you, and see you next week.